Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rational Talks podcast. This is the first inaugural episode of this podcast. During Christmas time, I read two books that really inspired me to get involved in what I like to call the culture wars. One of them was The Parasitic Mind by Dr. Gad Saad. And he basically inspired me to get on the court and play. And another book that I read that inspired me to how to involve culture in this fight is the book called Silent Laughter by author Marco Adornato, which is our first guest today on Rational Talks podcast. So right before I introduce you to my guest, I'd just like to give a word to our sponsors. So Construction DPE, for all your construction needs in landscaping, renovation, or maintenance on your properties, DPE is the company to call. Construction DPE, phone number 450-674-9220. And for all your beauty needs, your first stop is Fort Knox Beauty Bar on 6431 Jean Talon East Street, St. Leonard, Montreal, Quebec. Fort Knox is a new beauty bar, tattoo, and barber shop with their extensive list of services from men's and women's hair, lashes, manicures, pedicures, tattoos, and piercings. There is something for everyone. Fort Knox Beauty Bar, 6431 Jean Talon Street East, St. Leonard, Quebec. All right, so today, our first guest on Rational Talks podcast, I am very happy and honored to have novelist Marco Adornato, author of The Silent Laughter. Even though Silent Laughter is his first novel, you wouldn't be able to tell after reading it. You would think it's his 10th because of how good of a job he did on it. It's a fictional novel set in a dystopian, authoritarian, not so distant future where everything is regulated and most comedy is censored and outlawed. A modern day 1984, if you will. It is a well-written, simple and easy to read book with a brilliant touch of humor that you won't want to put down. A feel-good ending about the power of love with an unexpected twist at the very end. A must-read for critical thinkers with a big sense of humor. So Marco, thanks for coming on. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Costa. It's a real pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. So let's dive right into it. Can you just describe us a bit about yourself and how you wanted to become a writer and write this book?
I've always had an interest in politics since I've been a kid, and it's something that even my elementary school teachers were perplexed of my interest about politics at a very young age, and it's always been there. And I used to always write. At one point, when I was always writing like short stories, and I was constantly reading. I practically lived in libraries, and it was always something a part of my character. I was also very athletic. I'm like a Swiss Army knife, but writing was always something, was always in my back pocket type of thing. I actually studied in communications and at Vanier, and I wanted to be a screenwriter. I wanted to be a director. So I wanted to always be somewhat involved with the arts. But life has a funny way of throwing you curveballs, and I got off that path. And I really connected with my writing again once I was well into my 30s. And I really made it a point, like, okay, I want to start writing more expanded pieces. And this idea for Silent Laughter was I was challenging myself. I only want to write 30,000 words, which would have been like my biggest piece of writing I've ever done. Because usually I write short stories and a lot of poetry, and it just exploded into over 100,000 words. And yeah, so that's how it kind of came about. But like writing, some of my favorite authors was like George Orwell, which would not be surprising, but like Ernest Hemingway, Charles Bukowski, John Fonte, the list goes on and on, and just I'll read anything from anyone. But then, like in terms of politics, Noam Chomsky is someone I really respect and admire. Or like in philosophy, a bit of Nietzsche. And so, like I'm really all over the place. And for me, knowledge knows no bounds, and the more you know, the better it is.
Well, I like to hear that knowledge does have no bounds, and it's good to read a bit of everything, because I guess you don't want to live in a bubble and close yourself off with a certain school of thought, if you will. So that's interesting. Actually, I started reading not too long ago Manufacturing Consent from Noam Chomsky, which I wouldn't say I align myself politically with him, but it's a very interesting book about the political economy of mass media. So I recommend that book to everybody. So can you get into a bit of the process of writing Silent Laughter in specific? Like you just mentioned that this wasn't your idea of getting into a big piece of writing like a novel like this. But so how did it become like that? Like maybe you got inspired while you were writing these ideas, and how did that formate into a long novel?
Well, okay. So first of all, it started off. I wanted it to be a screenplay. So, and then as I started to write it, I'm like, this is. I couldn't formulate it as a screenplay. So I was like, I'm gonna create this as a story type of thing. But the inspirations for it, it's incremental type of things. It was like I started writing it 2 years ago. So like
So before the pandemic.
Before I guess you could, if you want to call it woke culture, before there was a lot more cancellations being like on the forefront of news and stuff like that. But there was always like these little articles coming out about some comedian getting criticized or someone getting canceled, whatever you want to call it, type of thing. But also in terms of like government stepping in with like creating some new bylaw or some new question about hate speech laws and stuff like that. And for me, those are always like red flags about like where we might end up, type of thing. Because in terms of politics and even like societal change, it really takes time. And like one of my inspirations for that is also the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, which like it takes place like over 30,000 years type of thing. But it's a lot of stuff that affect the future. Like sometimes it's these small incremental moments in human history that really change things as a whole type of thing. So it's like, yes, maybe like canceling or like shutting down a certain comedian might not be the biggest drastic thing, and it might not like cause an immediate effect on people, but it helps create that butterfly effect, if you will, over the long term. So, and just also like listening to a lot of comedians and just like hearing their acts, and then hearing and just going on Twitter and just seeing how some people interpret and react to it. It was like, okay, there's a definite culture shift going on, and the whole like social justice warrior aspect and stuff like that. But like people taking it to extreme. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna take this idea of censorship with comedians, and like also with the idea of like speakeasies. Like back in the 30s, like alcohol was prohibited. And that just spawned a whole underground network of speakeasies, and people like if they want to have a drink, they have to go underground and they have to hide, and they have to have their little liquor.
To have a scotch or a whiskey.
I get their scotch, and which also like helped like the burlesque, and there was like a lot of like a combination of things, and like usually you have like a comedian or a jazz band, all which were like pretty much considered like taboo, especially in that area. So I use that concept to like, okay, what if we take it's not alcohol that's prohibited, it's comedy that's prohibited and it's controlled. So it was like I applied that concept, and it was like I'm just gonna exaggerate on a lot of things of where like it could get to, but also it's like I understand it's like we're not there yet. It's the type of thing. It's like
yes. So basically, it's like a caricature you wanted to portray of the cancel culture, cancel movement, whatever we want to call it.
For me, it's just like if things get taken to the extreme, but also it's also how like a government or a state system will take advantage of a social movement or something for their own means, or a corporation will take advantage. Because a lot of these movements, their intentions are good, and I'll agree with a lot of them in principle and what they're talking about. But the extremists always within those movements always get the most airplay, and that's how they get manipulated into our government would be like, yes, of course, we'd love to expand hate speech laws to cover a lot more grounds, and
Yeah,
because then ultimately it'll help protect them, type of thing, whoever is in power.
exactly.
So
But it's not
that's
as black and white as that. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just that's or those were some of the things that helped inspire silent laughter, and it's like when people say, "Don't make that joke." For me, it's like, no, say that joke. It's either you're gonna laugh at it or you're not gonna laugh at it. And if I don't like that comedian, I'm just not gonna listen to him.
Yeah,
And
it's like the whole idea of the only way to fight bad speech is with good speech,
yes,
is not by
100%,
banning it. Yeah,
hundred
that
percent,
makes
hundred
perfect
percent.
sense. Um, because like in Canada, well, in the United States, they have really hardcore protections for
Yeah.
free speech. So maybe they might survive a bit longer than for say Europe or Canada. Like in our
Mhm.
case, we have basically hate hate speech laws already in motion. And that whole story with M16 with Jordan Peterson a few years
Yeah.
ago.
C16.
Um, that's right. Sorry. That was about gendered speech, but basically it's the same. It's the whole fight about free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't know about you, where you stand on free speech. Is there any restraint that you believe on free speech?
I like to say I'm an absolutist, but I understand the consequences of what you're saying, type of thing. But I don't believe a government should be the ones mandating what is free speech and what's hate speech, what's not, because and like on one hand, people are like the government is corrupt, there's systemic racism, and all these bad things, which are very likely true and are true, type of thing. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, but we're going to give you all this power to decide how we're going to live, and what we're going to say. So it's like
It's an
you,
oxymoron there.
it
Yeah.
is. It's like you trust them, but then you don't trust them. So it's like, how about you just take away that power and let ourselves do it? Let's.
Yeah.
We need to take care of it, type of thing. And I
Uh,
also forgot to mention another inspiration is Mike Ward and that whole
mhm.
Petit Jeremy
Yeah.
situation, and the courts, him getting sued, and then the Human Rights Council like ruling against him. And that was
Yeah.
also a big inspiration for this book, because though that's like one of those precedents that I talked about. Like if he actually loses now in the Supreme Court, now there's an actual legal precedent that if you're offended by a joke, if you're in the crowd, and then you could actually like try and sue the comedian because you feel like it was an attack against you and like it hurt you and you're going to try and compensate yourself monetarily, type of thing. It's
Yeah.
like now you're starting to set a standard that even that Petit Jeremy wasn't in the crowd. There was actually a journalist that was in the crowd that
Yeah.
felt offended and actually reported it, which actually created a big explosion of
Yeah.
people like saying, "Oh, how dare he?" or actually saying, "Oh, he has the right." They actually created that whole situation. Well,
Yes, because at the end of the day, you go to a show, yeah, especially if you go to a Mike Ward show, you should know what you're getting
you
yourself
know what you're getting
into.
yourself into.
Exactly. And sometimes they like you mentioned this a lot in the book, how they like to take things out of context.
Yes.
And I guess that the whole joke was taken out of context, whether you found it funny or not, or the joke you find it a bit too heavy or not. It doesn't matter. The whole idea of a human rights commission that decides what is acceptable comedy is just,
It's going
it's
too far.
dangerous.
It's going too far.
Because
Like you
we
can
have
go off. Go ahead. Sorry.
because we have penal courts where defamation and reputation are all already protected under law. So there's no reason for a human rights council to come and decide what's acceptable and what's not, and then have a, because I'm sure Mike Ward can afford the $46,000 to pay the fine, and I'm really happy that he's taking this on principle and bringing it to the Supreme Court. I don't know if I have faith in the Supreme Court's decision to make the right decision, but I don't know. What do you think about that, and what's your opinion on where the Supreme Court might decide?
Well, if I think if they really look at it on a legal standpoint and actually like apply like free speech, and I think they have to rule against it. But then public pressure, image, what they're trying. So I'm not sure.
It's hard. Yeah,
I could only say like what I want. I want them to rule against it so they eliminate that precedent. But the way things have been going, the way I would imagine he's going to lose, and might open up a whole new can of worms. And it's like Montreal is like a hub of comedy like every year with Just for Laughs, and they have like
Yeah,
the Nasty Show, and it's like you go watch the Nasty Show, you know what you're gonna get.
it's
And
true.
Mike Ward was actually hosting a couple of years ago, and he redid the joke, and like everyone was laughing. It was
Yeah,
funny, and if you hate it, you have every right to go home. You could go on Facebook. You could say, "I hate Mike Ward. I hate that joke." You have. I will never say that you're not allowed to say that. You're entitled to your opinion. You could express it. You could yell it. But when you try and get a government or a human rights commission, or you want to sue him, or you attack his advertisers to try and remove his advertisers, then for me, you're going too far. Call it cancellation. Call it what you will.
yeah,
You're going well beyond the means, because if everyone doesn't like Mike Ward, eventually no one's going to go watch his shows, and Mike Ward is going to have to find a new career path, type of thing. And
yeah.
it's done organically. It's done through, we're deciding, the fans are deciding if they actually like that brand of humor or not. But
Exactly.
if 20 people want to go watch Mike Ward every week, by all means, go watch it. I'm not going to get in your way. Like, what's it going to change in my life, really? But like, for
Exactly.
me to like pump my chest up and go online and try and get people canceled, I think it's more about validating your own ego, type of thing, than actually like trying to help Petit Jeremy, type of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think not many people. I agree with that completely, because I don't think many people. The whole fact. I know some people are offended for little Jeremy,
Yeah.
but I know that many people are just to show how good of people they are. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Or,
against. That was horrendous what he said about the little kid. I would never do that. I would never laugh at that. It's basically that's what I hear about people criticizing that joke.
or it's a power play, and if you could actually manage to get someone fired from their job, or like to get them off of social, it gives you a sense of power.
Yeah,
And in general, we're all very powerless, all of us, to many extents. We don't have I think we're regular people. We're not politicians. We don't run major corporations and stuff like that. So it's like we're all desperate for a little bit of power, or a little bit of, we all have egos, and we all need to satisfy it to some extent. And some people need that power play to feel like they actually have an impact on this world, because like to change the world is very difficult. To change society is very difficult. But sometimes, even if you go on that keyboard, you're a keyboard warrior, and it might not have been your tweet, but you were a part of an online mob or something. You got that
exactly.
person canceled. You'll feel good about yourself, and maybe that shitty day you had, and you get to look at someone else's misery. What I think it's called Schadenfreude. That way,
Mm.
like, you take pleasure in other people's misery and stuff. So
Yes.
it's like maybe it pumps you up, but that's more of a question that I think you should
Yes.
be introspective and be like, what am I really looking for by counseling? Let's say Mike
Yeah.
Ward, if you want to call it
And what will it
counseling.
change in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But like,
uh,
why is this so important to you, really?
yeah, just I don't know. I guess growing up in our generation, I think you might be 1 or 2 years older than me, but I was raised on live and let live, like kind of
Mhm.
principle, like do your thing and let everybody do their thing, and as long as it doesn't affect you, just let it go. Um, it just boggles my mind because some people like Mike Ward that have you can't cancel Mike Ward. He has a podcast. He has
Mhm. He
basically
has
his own.
he has
His,
power. Yeah, he
exactly.
has a status, and yes. So.
It's more like the little guy like that doesn't have no power on Twitter or something, or that might have said something, or that might have tweeted an offensive joke. Maybe that's offensive now, but 10 years ago, maybe most people would have found it funny.
Mhm.
And then these, like you call them, internet mob, go around and get them actually fired, losing their
Mhm.
livelihood. And I think it's those people that we need to find a way to like protect these people. Like I think only it's a snowball effect. Maybe if just a few start standing up and like not caring about being thrown these labels at them, whether it's racist or homophobic or
Mhm.
transphobic, no matter what it is, that they'd stand up and say, okay, who cares? Those words coming from your mouth don't mean nothing to me.
Mhm.
People that know me, my family and my friends, they know who I am. That's all that I care about.
Mhm.
And I guess once a few people start doing that, it might make other people feel more comfortable and less alone, that they'll be able to stand up too. And then that whole house of cards will crumble,
Mhm.
right? I
I
think,
think that it's important that, yes, we don't want people to get fired, but there's also a point that people will not say what they're thinking. So it's like censorship by omission type of thing. It's like people will not say what they're thinking because they're terrified of actually saying that wrong word, or that
mhm,
wrong phrase, or like that. that momentary lapse of judgment or reason type of thing. And it's like if you make a small mistake, it could be the end for you. And
Yeah.
unlike, let's say, Mike Ward or Jordan Peterson or other public figures, it won't really hurt them. It won't hurt like Joe Rogan or Dave
Exactly.
Chappelle type of
They've
thing. Like,
tried already.
they've attempted, but their platform is so big, like
Yeah.
it won't hurt them so much. But it's just like if people are having a conversation, it could just be like not even on the internet. You have a conversation with a family member and you say the wrong thing, and they're not being tolerable, or like it hurts them to that level. They won't talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
That has an effect. It has an effect on the social structure, has an effect on you as a person. So it's like it's not only on the internet, the censorship, it happens in between people. So it's like there's a lot of fear about expressing yourself, and that will actually hurt minorities, and it'll actually hurt people that don't have power, because they're like, there's too many absolutists, and it's like, you know what, I'd rather not dive into, like you're saying, standing up for what I believe in, because
Mhm.
I'll just get struck down, because at the end of the day, I need to go to work. I have a family. I have to raise my kids. I have other responsibilities. And yeah, I want to fight for free speech. I want to fight for these things. But how much of my ass am I willing to put on the line? Am I willing to put my kids' next meal on the line because of some internet argument? A lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of people don't even know what's going on with cancellations and like censorship and like government, because they don't have time. A lot of people are
Yeah.
struggling to make ends meet, especially with this pandemic, and they don't have time to think about these issues and stuff like that. So like we're lucky that we actually have the ability to talk about it, but
Yeah. It's true.
not everybody has that power and that willingness, because in the real world, in real life, there's other things that are much more important to people. So
Especially families with kids and everything. Yeah, of course.
everybody has something to lose, everything. So it's like, yes, it's important to fight for free speech, but we have to make it accessible to everybody, so that, yes, if that blue collar worker wants to say something, he won't be like, I don't know. He's gonna be like, you know what, I'm actually gonna say what I think, and I won't get completely destroyed. I'll just get somebody that says, okay, I disagree with you, instead of, I'm gonna get you fired. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna call your
Yes.
boss. So it's like there's limitations. Debate is
If we can go
important for
back to
society.
having a conversation,
Yes,
basically.
yes. It's not a witch hunt. It's not a trial. Not every tweet or every post that you put is like a. It's like you're going to be judged by trial and jury type of thing. It's like, okay, it's just the
Yeah.
truth. It's
It's
like
just what you're taught. It's like I'm not the thought police. I'm not here to. We could have a conversation. I can
exactly.
disagree with you. You can disagree with me. Let's
Exactly.
talk about it. And if at the end we just can't agree to disagree, I guess like it's been happening for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but words could hurt. Like
Yes,
words can
no
hurt
doubt.
people, and it bothers me when people say words are violence type of thing. But it does hurt, and it does have effects. It does affect mental health and all that. But by restricting it, you won't teach people how to deal with it, because in the real, like, it will be a lot. Well, now what they're trying to do is like they want to start like censoring like podcasts. Like that seems to be like the next target
Yeah.
of like trying to like control speech, because like now Twitter is like they come down on you if you post the wrong things or community guidelines, all that stuff. But like in real life, if someone wants to bully you, they're going to bully you. So it's better that we talk about these things, so that you better prepare. And kids' feelings are going to get hurt. It's going to happen. But
Kids will be kids.
kids will be kids. But instead of like trying to completely like I forget, there's a statistic about the anti-bullying programs. Like they're practically failures. They're not working, because we're not getting to the root of what's going on, and we have to like help these kids talk about it and work through whatever's bothering them. But like to completely shut it out, it's not going to help. Like bad ideas don't go away just because you don't talk about them. They're going to be there, and that gives them an opportunity to grow. And it's like you said, you fight bad speech with good speech, and you try and have a conversation about it. So
Yes,
it's like you need to
exactly.
really.
But I think this whole aspect of microaggressions are making things worse, because every little thing can now be an aggression and can be considered violence. I think that's what's keeping us from having a conversation, because something that I think is inoffensive might be super offensive to you, and right away is like you start screaming, offending, harassment, or whatever, and then there's no point in talking. Then that person is just gonna, okay, whatever, turn around and walk away, and then both people keep their beliefs or their ways of thinking, instead of having a conversation, like I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was interesting because we already covered a lot of parallels with society today. But just give us basically a synopsis of your book, and maybe without telling too much about the book, because I want people to read it because it's definitely worth it. But just a summary of your book.
To try and keep it brief, I guess I follow like different characters, and
Okay.
there's different storylines that basically intersect in the end type of thing. And I follow old comedians, which are like I call them elder comedians, like old comedians, let's say from our time, that have grown up and now they're being like censored, and they're a part of the underground comedic community type of thing. So they're performing, and they're always trying to like work around the government's laws, and they still want to perform comedy freely type of thing, and saying what they want to say, and letting crowds decide if they're actually funny or not.
The way it's supposed to be.
And then I take the angle of an actual, I call a regulator, which is a state official that is in charge of regulating citizens and making sure that they're conforming to the state's laws. So I follow a character, and we follow his progression and how and his hunt with comedians. And then there's another character, Sarah, who is for me like the everyman, the every woman, whatever you want to call her, is just like the everyday person, and how the comedic world and the regulation world is affecting her type of thing, and of how she wants more freedom, but she can't have this freedom, and how she wants to be herself, but at the same time she has to wear many different masks. So my novel is a lot about censorship and comedy, but it's also a lot about identity and being yourself and being able to express yourself.
Yeah, we see that a lot in Sarah. Yeah.
So there's there's these multiple storylines, and there's also like Judd, who was a comedian who like ratted out other comedians, which is happening. People call out their colleagues and stuff like that, and the effects on him. So I try and take multiple angles to try and take like from the government side, the everyman side, the performer side, and then like even within the performers, what they think about other performers, and just to play along those lines. So, and in essence, it's like the state is trying to like. I think their goal at the end was like we're not only are we going to punish you on what you just said, we're going to punish you on what you have said,
Exactly.
which is very relevant to what's happening today type of thing.
Yeah.
And like people like mining your 10,000 tweets for maybe that one time you might have said that stupid thing. So, but instead of like today just getting called out, now you would have like a government official, which would be the regulator, coming to your house, taking you away, bringing you to a center, and re-educating you, and ensuring that you're following the new state norms. If you fail to do so, then they put a muzzle on your mouth, which for me was more of like it's a symbolic thing, and how you shut people up basically. But now instead of like now it's all done like subversive ways. It's like we're getting people get shut up by getting bullied or like getting thrown off the internet. I took a more overt method, which is actually they actually put a muzzle on your mouth. So
I saw the muzzle as a symbolism of basically of self-censorship, where they get you to a point where you don't want to say anything by being scared of what the consequences are. That's why I saw the muzzle as a symbolism of that. Is that maybe, am I on the right track there?
You're on the right track, but it's also that how people would treat the people with the muzzles.
Oh, yes.
Because then they become outcasts. You're going to get the same services, which I cover in the book, and they're not treated in the same way. And it's important, and that's important also because it's not only about getting canceled. It's also let's take Louis C.K.
Mm-hmm.
People will still say he should never be able to perform again, but he lost contracts. He's off the scene type of thing. It's like
vilified.
He's vilified. So, but like, after how long are we still going to vilify this person? And it comes down to it's like if you go to jail and you serve your time, are you always going to treat, let's say, that non-violent criminal offender like he's a criminal? Like at one point, are you going to forgive this person for, let's say, stealing, robbing a bank, let's say, and he killed absolutely no one? He just
it's true though, because look at when you get banned from Twitter, basically. You're basically, well, let's take Donald Trump, for example. Mm-hmm. He is a permanent ban, not supposed to ever be allowed to come back on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But even a murderer was sentenced to a life sentence. usually will serve 25 years and then after will be released. So you'll vilify someone and forever they'll be seen as that person who was banned from Twitter, was an evil person with no chance of redeeming himself.
Well, that's it. Are you allowed? Is there any room for redemption nowadays? And it
Exactly.
seems to be a lot more difficult because it's a lot easier to hate online and to actually to actually say. I think I covered this also with Tim. Yeah, they have a hard time admitting that they're wrong.
Yeah.
It's like it's okay to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah,
it's okay to correct yourself. That's called growing up. It's like you're evolving as a person, and yes, you might have had shitty ideas, and it might be hard for some people to believe that you changed from your shitty ideas, but you have to give them a chance, and you have to let their actions prove it, type of thing. So there has to be some room
that's room for improvement.
And I think that's what Silent Laughter is about. Is that I'm taking these different aspects, and it's just I'm just taking like a glimpse of what's going on in this world and where it might be going. There might be a second part, there might not be, but for me, it was important, like just to show like from different perspectives, from I said, from the comedians, from the everyman, from the state, and just how everything intertwines and what's going on through their minds, type of thing. And I think that's what I pretty much do in the book. And I try and use humor. It was really difficult because to write stand-up comedy to perform stand-up comedy is extremely difficult. To write it is extremely difficult. So that's why I tippy-toed around a lot of stuff, but
But your book was published, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean Amazon, right? It was self-published on Amazon, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And with all this, I don't know if you heard recently with the whole Amazon banning Ryan Anderson's book about how Harry became Sally, or how Sally became Harry, or something like that. And I was just wondering, after learning more about your book, did you get pushback? Because
I'm too small. I don't have enough sales. I'm not a big market player. I don't have the brand recognition. If I had a different name, maybe. I was worried. Like my girlfriend, she gets upset with me because I'm like, "Did you think the book was racist? Do you think people would get this impression of me?" And she says, "No, there's absolutely nothing in there that should make you think like I'm a racist person," type of thing. And I write from the point of view of Sarah in the book. So I told her I'm a man writing a female character. So actually I took some chapters and I made some women that I know read it, and from different age groups. And I'm like, does this make sense? Does it sound like a man writing a female role, or is this actually like a more realistic presentation of a female character? And I got good reviews, and then I actually spoke to someone. He's like, I'm able to separate the writer from the characters in the book because I'm creating these characters. It's not me. It's like, so it's important to have these separations, but I'm nowhere big enough for to get any pushback yet, type of thing.
But I was thinking more because I found your book hilarious, to be honest. Maybe we have a similar sense of humor, but there is some humor that some people might find offensive. I don't know if
it's intentional. I put in like a Jimmy Carr joke that I found online that it was on one of his clips that he did his top 10 most offensive jokes. So and that was his number one most offensive joke.
And I think that's the one I laughed the most.
Okay, I put it in there on purpose, and even talking about Richard Pryor and stuff like that. But it's important to get challenged. And yes, if you get offended, by all means, you're allowed to get offended. But it's not me.
Yes.
But you could get mad at me. It's fine. But
it's in the context of the book, the story
of the book, and also I'm not mad at Jimmy Carr. I found that joke funny, but it doesn't necessarily mean I believe that's the case for. It was a joke about homosexuals, okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean I believe that about homosexuals. It's not. It's just a joke in that moment. It makes light of reality, and it's you get back to reality.
And to be honest with you, I showed that because as I was preparing for this podcast, I wanted to talk about that joke, and I asked my friend who is gay, and he found it absolutely hilarious. So sometimes people that get offended they usually get offended for other people. It's not really the people that are
Yeah,
that
100%.
are that are talked about in the said joke that usually are offended. Usually it's other people, whether it's about gender or about sexual orientation or race, whatever. Usually it's other people that get offended for other people. So
Yeah.
we don't have to dwell too much on that. But I found it interesting that maybe like someone that read over your book at Amazon would like ask you to change something or something, but that wasn't the case, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. The only online moment I had, which was I was trying to promote my book, so I was like just tagging my book on Twitter on random tweets, and it was a Glenn Greenwald tweet,
Mm-hmm.
and some comedian picked it up, and like and all like it was like 30 retweets or 30 tweets, and people are like, oh, I bet this is a book defending rape jokes. I bet he's there's trying, but it's like they did not read the book, and there was all these like judgments on my book, and it was like I didn't interact with it, but like it drove me nuts a bit. It was like this is the first time, and it's like all this negativity, and I'm like, but like
They assume things, yeah.
they assumed all this stuff about the book, and it's like no, it's more about state control over comedy. It's like what happens if the government actually really gets involved in what could happen, type of thing, and it's like why like automatically assuming that because I'm like trying to defend free speech and comedy that I'm going to the most extremes. I bet that there's Hitler jokes. I was desperate to say the N-word, so I tried to use a context of comedy inside the book. So it's like no, but like actually, why don't you pick up the book, read it, and then make a judgment?
And then we could have a conversation, yeah.
No, you could call me a piece of shit. You could call me whatever you want. It's fine, but just immediately on face value, it's like he likes Dave Chappelle, he likes this, and he thinks that they're gonna get canceled. He's crazy. It's like, but like I just said, these comedians are my inspiration, but they took it automatically. I think that these comedians are gonna get canceled. No, they're not gonna get canceled. You can't cancel Richard Pryor. You can't cancel. You can't cancel them. It's not gonna happen. They're way too big unless you have like you eliminate their catalogs digitally and I guess your book burning and stuff like that.
But like you said, they have too much power. In our lifetime, I don't see that happening. Now, I don't know about in 50, 100 years, because I do think we are going towards that path. Now, how fast are we moving? I can't tell because we are literally inside the car. So I can't tell, but I do see it getting not dangerous to a fact that we might actually be like on the edge of the cliff. But I think we are moving towards the cliff. But that's only me. Maybe I'm paranoid a bit. I'm a bit pessimist, but I don't know. Are you an optimist in that way?
Cancel culture, as we call it, has always existed. This is not a new phenomenon. It has always existed. As long as there's a power structure, they're always trying to control what people are saying, because if people say contrary to what they're saying, they want to try and stop it. Be it religion, be it politics, and nowadays it's social justice, social issues. Okay,
that's interesting. Yeah.
So there's always been, like in the 80s. There was the PMRA, I think it was. It was like all the wives of politicians trying to create labels on music records and the music albums, like putting a rating system on it and trying to control actual music lyrics and stuff like that. And a lot of artists, from Frank Zappa, John Denver, you could find beautiful clips of them defending artists' right to sing about what they want and present what they want, and that government should not get involved. So it's like there's always been these periods of time that there's always something trying to get banned, and even like Lenny Bruce in the 60s and the 70s, people were trying to get rid of him because he would talk about certain issues. Even George Carlin. So there's always something that's a power structure or a group of people that have some power that don't like what someone else is saying. They're going to try and eliminate it. So like I don't think that cancel culture is something new. It might be a new form because of how internet and social media is a new medium, and now it's like it could get really magnified really quickly. And I hate it when people say cancel culture doesn't exist. I completely disagree. It has always existed. As long as you can't, like, Catholics will never want to hear pedophile jokes about priests. Muslims will never want to hear jokes about Allah, and it's just you just keep going down the line. It's like.
It's true. I see what you're saying, because I remember even as a young teenager, about in Congress, a House committee, when they were trying to blame Marilyn Manson for the mass shooting in Colorado, violent games. So I see I see what you're saying, and I agree. I just think that it's like especially in the last 5 years, like since the 2016 election, I think it accelerated pretty quickly. It's gotten bigger faster.
I think it's a good thing that you're reading Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, because when it was written, and you could see like the media is portrayed as a left right type of thing. Let's say,
Yeah.
okay, but they're all owned by corporate entities who all benefit from, let's say, we'll call it right wing policies. Let's say
Yeah.
tax cuts and
Yeah.
the military, and they all have vested interests. So, like, are they really right left, or is it just a representation of what they want to be, or what they're trying to present? Okay, so it's like MSNBC, they have no problems about bombs dropping on Syria because it's good for their bottom line. Because after MSNBC goes to commercial, you're going to see a commercial by Boeing, who makes the planes that drop the bombs.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all interrelated. But like even through the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, it's not direct cancellation, it's not direct censorship, it's by omission. They will not talk about what's really going on. So it's like, it's also, yes, cancel culture is getting a real big emphasis right now, and it creates a lot of divide. It's a big distraction also, because we're not focusing on like major issues, what's going on around in the world. People are like, Yemen is like getting completely brutalized and raped, and we won't hear about it as much as in the news. We won't hear about the Epstein case. We won't hear about all these little things that are happening. They're not little things. They're serious things that are happening around the world, or like the Indians protesting in India. Not the Indians, the farmers protesting in India.
Yeah.
All these like little things that we do not focus on, because we get distracted by the media, which says focus on this and look at this. Yes, like Pepe Le Pew and Dr. Seuss. Yes, it shouldn't happen, but also at the same time, does that merit all that airtime, or is it a convenient distraction that they could really capitalize, because it's a really divisive topic? It's like you're for it or against it.
It's a wedge. It's a wedge that they.
It is a wedge, but this has always existed throughout, especially like the modern era with television and print. It's what they're not talking about, and if they're telling you to focus on this, they're not canceling Yemen as a story type of thing. We're just not talking about it.
Yeah.
Julian Assange is in jail, and they're not considering him a journalist, which is very dangerous. Which might set a precedent that if you have the truth, you're not allowed to share it because it's state sanctioned. It's like, but by omission, they're not there.
Yeah.
So it's always been there. It's just now with the media, it's like it's all over our face, and they make it a point that it's on the front page, because it'll get the clicks, it'll get the argument. Should we worry about it? Yes. I'm not saying we shouldn't worry about it, but it's important to understand,
to prioritize
the mechanics behind it, of why it's getting to this point and what's going on. But obviously, like I don't want. For me, it's like getting Pepe Le Pew canceled is whatever. It's ridiculous. And
it sounds stupid, but it is stupid. But I mean, I mean, there's no the reason they use for these things. Is it like, are they like you said about manufacturing consent? Is that what they're doing? They're basically manufacturing division, because they know they know that half. Mostly it's a polarizing issue, so either half are gonna agree or half are not, and it's gonna keep us busy arguing with each other and leaving the most important things, like you say, without being spoken of.
But also, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dr. Seuss, the company that owns the Dr. Seuss, the rights to publish, it wasn't a marketing scheme. That they went out, they said, okay, we're gonna take out these books. They got all kinds of publicity, and all those books, they got sold out. Everyone went and buy those books.
It's true, though.
People went and buy those books like crazy, because out of fear that they're going to be, all of them are going to be removed eventually, or at one point or another. Those books got sold. So it's like, in terms of marketing, it's a good strategy sometimes.
Not only do you show your virtuousness, but you push your books.
You still got sales. So it's like, exactly, you're pleasing one side, and then the other side that's completely like, holy shit, we gotta get these books, and they're still making money. So it's like there's a lot of things that are underlying, and we gotta, like, you always have to unpeel that onion. It's
Yeah.
not always everything that's on face value type of thing. It's easy to get outraged, but at the same time, you have to be like, but why? Why are we being led to this point? And like, for what does it? What will we gain? What will that company gain? Why will Fox News talk about X and MSNBC will talk about Y, and to what gain? Like, why
Mhm.
are they focusing on these things? And usually it's about making money or to manipulate someone to go in a certain
It's
direction.
pushing clickbait material that
Yeah.
will get people to click on the stories.
Like how many clickbaits have you clicked on? You read the article and it's like that title
Yeah,
has nothing to do with the story.
absolutely nothing.
So,
It happens so many times,
but
but because they know most of the people don't even click on the. They just read the
yeah, they
headline
just read the headline.
and they continue and they assume that that's the whole story. But uh, I have a few people in my entourage that are very militant in on this. Okay, I don't want to call them woke, but basically very left side of the political spectrum.
Mhm.
And sometimes the way they talk to me makes me think about, like, they're talking like if I'm it feels like I'm talking to a religious person.
Mhm.
And in your book, in the beginning of chapter 5, talking about Tim's parents while him was growing up, you say his parents were religious in their political ideology, whose primary pillars were the outrage culture and signaling one's virtuousness.
Mhm.
Do you, do you agree with the fact that some people in this movement or culture ideology, like, have a religious dogma about this stuff?
It applies also to political party. It's like religion.
Tribalism.
It is tribalism. It is to that, it's like black versus white. It's either you're with us or you're against us, and you can't deviate from whatever standardized norm they consider that they consider that you should follow. But yes, it sounds like a religion. And like I grew up in a split household. One side was Jehovah Witness, and one side was Catholic. So
Oh,
like I was going to school in a Catholic school, and I was a practicing witness. Okay, when I was a kid, so I was getting like these different perspectives, and they're both saying no, they're wrong, and no, they're wrong, and they're right, and they're right, and they're wrong because of this, and then like I'm right. It was difficult as a child to deal with, but now I look back and it's like I'm happy because I got to see different perspectives, and I could see how religious ideology and political ideology are kind of like the same thing, of like how people are willing to follow blindly, and that if someone says something that doesn't fit the flock, that you're going to get outcast, and that you're going to be put out, and no one's going to talk to you. You're going to be put out the pasture type of thing. And it's like, and that happens, let's say, like in extreme cases of Jehovah Witnesses. If you're not a Jehovah Witness, you're not supposed to be talking with other Jehovah Witnesses. Like on the extremists, like on
yeah,
the
yeah.
very extreme ones.
On the
Okay?
radical side, yeah.
On the radical side, okay, the ones that are very extreme, but they're all reading the same Bible, so it's like a different interpretation of the same
Yes.
the same thing. But if you don't follow them to the letter, to the T, you're out. And it's the same thing, what you call, let's say, woke culture or certain social movements and stuff like that. If you just deviate just slightly, you're you're gonna get crucified.
It's like
And
blasphemy.
it's exactly, it's blasphemy. It's the same context. And some people make the argument because we're less religious, it's the human need to try and find something to have a connection to, and it's inherent in us a bit. So it's like that's what some people might argue, type of thing.
That's interesting, yeah.
But ultimately, it's like, yes, I think it has. They definitely mirror religious beliefs, and it is an ideology, and it is a way of. It's a way that you want to live your life, type of thing, and be careful. You have to be careful because in
Yeah.
religion, you have to be vigilant. You have to be careful with your actions constantly because there is this big guy up there, or big woman, whatever you want to call it, this entity that's watching you, and he will judge you one day. So be careful because and
Well, that's what they say. No, that's well, some people I've heard that a few times over, about how that's what we're missing in society today, and that moral aspect is that fear of God that no one has no more, where it would keep you basically have your morals straight, and now you just, I don't know, more vicious, more intolerant.
I personally don't think that you need a God figure to have that strike that fear. I think people are in general decent people, and they just want to, like you said, live and let live,
Yeah,
and want people to actually be happy. They want their neighbors to be happy. They don't want people to be living in misery. and I think
Yeah.
that's inherent in our nature. And I don't think we need to have that figure. I think maybe since we're all a byproduct of religious societies and cultures, especially like now in North America, or like Judeo-Christian, and like those. So it's like it's gonna take some time for the adjustments, and maybe this is part of the adjustment period. That maybe this is part of the shifting away from religious belief, and now it's like it's even like scientists and science are getting like elevated to certain pedestals and stuff like that, and you can't question science, and it's like, but that sounds exactly like you can't question God, and you can't. So it's
Yeah.
like, yes, science is more observant, like I get it, but like sometimes it gets twisted into another kind of ideology and another kind of like absolutism type of thing.
But
So
it
it's like,
depends. It depends which kind of science, because some science they want you to listen to, and other science they don't want you to listen to. You
yes,
mentioned
but
that also in your book, like about
yes,
biology.
but
Biology.
exactly. But then it becomes like it's like religion. It's like, should I be Muslim or should I be Catholic? Should
Yes.
I be
Yeah.
Buddhist or should I be Hindu? And, it's like they all fall under that umbrella. So science is definitely a broad umbrella. But it's like there's actually arguments online about 2 + 2 equaling
Equals
5.
5. Yeah.
And that's like in George Orwell. It's like the major point of Room 101 about like, but
Or
and they're
how
trying to
teaching math
justify it,
is
how
white
math.
supremacy. I don't know if you saw that one. Did you see
Yeah,
that one?
I've seen that, and it's like it, that's how ideology also seeps into science. Like the hard sciences, everything is super complex, and everything isn't black and white, and
Yes.
we have to take everything with a grain of salt, and we have to analyze things, and we have to look at them deeply. But also at the same time, it's like just take a step back. Take a step back. Okay, 2 + 2 is 4. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay to say that. It's all right to say that. But but then if you want to argue against it, you're allowed to. But don't expect a lot of people to take you seriously either.
Exactly. Exactly. Because that person, that professor, that put out that article in Popular Mechanics about 2 + 2 equaling 5, he was basically ridiculized on Twitter. Also defended, obviously, because
Yeah, of course.
some
There's two sides
people,
to every
like you
coin.
said, it's religion. So some people will defend anything, even if they don't agree with it. They'll just
But
defend it
they
because
might
it's on their
agree.
side.
But they might agree with this theory. With it, they might agree with it, which is fine by them. But like but the thing is that they cannot try and convince everybody else that because they believe it's true that is the truth.
Yes, exactly.
No.
What they call objective truths. Yeah, yeah,
It's like the super straight. Have you heard of the super straight
yeah.
phenomenon?
Super
So
anti-racist and super
the
straight.
super
Yeah,
straight stuff, and it's like, man, they trolled the
that's what they're
trans
doing. I think so.
the
Yeah,
trans debate, and the people were acting exactly contrary to what they want. It's like if you're heterosexual and you don't want to have sex with a trans person because they have a penis or a vagina depending
you're
on
transphobic.
well, but it's like it's sexual preference. It's like what I want as an individual. It's like trans people exist.
Yeah, I thought we went over this a few decades ago, and that we came out that
It's
whoever you prefer sexually is up to you.
exactly. It's like it's perfectly fine. I want you to be trans if it makes you happy. I have no problem with it. I'm extremely open minded, and even in terms of sexuality and stuff like I've met so many people from so many different walks of life in the sex community,
Mhm.
and everyone. If you're just trying to being nice and you believe in consent, you're always going to get along with everybody,
Yeah,
and you have a certain level of respect. But if you try and say no, you're not allowed to be super straight, what they're saying,
yeah,
then now you're pushing on ridiculous, and then now it's like you're trying to impose your belief system onto other people of what they're supposed to be attracted to or what they're not supposed to be attracted to.
yeah.
So,
And I thought we were fighting against that.
and that turns people off to the general topic, because then the small niche of people that actually believe that you're supposed to date anybody or whoever, like not, then it makes the whole community look bad, because in general the whole community just want to go and get on with their lives. They want to be respected as human beings, which they are, be it a trans woman, trans boy, whatever it is. They're entitled to their lives and they're entitled to be respected.
Yeah,
But it's always those fringe people that tarnish the whole, and it's like, God damn, it's like, okay, just
It's like we have an unconscious bias. That's why we don't like women with penises.
No,
I don't know.
no,
Just saying that sounds ridiculous, but
no.
but whatever. That's how some people perceive life as being that way. But I don't know. So let's move on, because I don't want to get red flagged by YouTube
No,
either.
but I
but
would like, yeah, we haven't said anything. Or like, I seem we're both accepting. We're very respectful.
yes, we've been.
Not denying people's existence. We're not saying that they shouldn't. But it's like,
But no, but we never know, you know.
I
But
know, but
I was just joking. We're not getting out of hand at all. I don't think so. At least not in my opinion. But something here I find interesting in your book, in chapter 13, where you say, well, where the narrator says some had stumbled on contraband and listened to George Carlin and had their lives changed right then and there. The greats still had the same effect, be it in the age of freedom or outrage. And I would like to touch on this because I think comedy was a point, especially in George Carlin's point of view, was to make people think about certain things.
100%.
It's not only about making people laugh. And like
Humor
like
was the medium. Humor was
Yes.
the medium.
exactly. And you actually, one of the rookies, the rookie
Young
comedies,
comedians.
she actually says that in one of her statements. But my parallel here is with George Carlin being contraband, being banned, basically, and without those ideas being pushed and that we can't talk about. Basically, I wanted to show the parallel of like Tropic Thunder. Basically, that a lot of Generation Z have been like watching the movie or seeing scenes from the movie and freaking out about Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Blackface.
Yes, but not understanding the whole point of the movie.
I was a caricature of blackface.
Yes, it's basically both him and Ben Stiller's character when he plays Jack. I think it is just Jack, right?
I can't remember.
And the whole point of the movie is them making fun of actors thinking they could play any character, any role.
Exactly.
It's the second degree that these people, like you were saying at the beginning of the conversation, saying that people were already assuming what your book's about without even reading it. It's what these people are doing by trying to ban or ban Tropic Thunder. You can't even realize what they were talking about, what they were trying, the lesson they were trying to push in that movie.
100%. But it's also with Tom Sawyer, with Mark Twain.
Oh yes,
because the character's called and Jim or whatever.
Yeah.
And but they don't understand that Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, became friends with him. The humanity about it. It was about how at that time where it was almost impossible for a black person and a white person to be friends, they were friends. They showed the humanity of it. So it's like, why would you want to ban something like that? And it's also a teaching point. You could talk about the history.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with like Tropic Thunder. Where I get to that extent, it's like it's a talking point. It gives you something to discuss. And it's the same thing in comedy. You could hear that terrible abortion joke. You'll laugh at it at the show. But then after the show, you won't be like, oh, that's the truth about abortion. You can be like, no. Abortion is a very serious topic, and there's lots of nuances. Some people are for, some people are against, and you can wherever you want to go. But like, it's like in that moment, it's not meant to. It's not the end all. It's not like written in stone. It makes you talk about it. It makes you think about it, and that's what comedy does a lot of times. It's like they'll make fun of stuff, and you have to take like painful moments, and it's important to laugh at them, not only for your own mental health, but it also makes you think about it and discuss it, and There's 9/11 jokes, there's Holocaust jokes, there's rape jokes, there's racist jokes, there's jokes of every kind. And yes, some people will get upset, but it opens up the door for conversation.
Exactly.
Like, why is it bad? Okay, it's really bad to think that all Italians are all gangsters and mobsters. They're not all. But sometimes it is funny to laugh at that joke. It's like, it's okay.
Like people have done comedy on stereotypes forever. It doesn't mean that everybody thinks all those, we generalize and everybody fits those stereotypes. It's like you say, it creates a conversation, and it actually opens doors for us to talk about things like this.
Yeah, and every joke is a bit of truth, and in every stereotype there is a bit of truth to some extent. And it's like even with that poo on The Simpsons, they and it's like, you're telling me you never met an Indian man with a heavy Indian accent? It's like,
yeah,
it's like It's like it's like it boggles my mind. It happens sometimes. It happens, and it's okay. It's okay to laugh. It's like you're taking something, you're making it absurd for the laughter. But people are. I don't think that they're going around expecting that every Indian person is like Apu.
Yeah.
It's like, there's 1 billion Indians in India. They're not all like Apu. It just doesn't function that way, and it's just.
I would like to know Sugar Sammy's opinion on that. On the on the what's his name? Harry. The name.
Hank Azaria.
Hank Azaria. Stopping doing the voice of Apu because of that. Because I think he's the guy that pushes the buttons on comedy. I think we can agree on that, right? Especially with stereotypes and everything. I don't see nothing wrong with his comedy. And it would be interesting for me to know what he thinks about that. I don't know if he's ever talked about it in a bit or everything. I've watched, like, I went to go see him like 3 times in concert. I've never seen him talk about it, but that would be interesting to see because, like I've said before, most of these people that are offended for these things are not actually the people that are being portrayed. And you say that's the one I was talking about. The rookie was Kat, the rookie comedian, where she says they're just jokes. Get over it. They merely make light of stereotypes, especially from the 70s and 80s. Of course, some assholes really talk like him, but this is just a grand caricature of that. It's satire and doesn't hurt anyone. It makes you realize how silly and stupid those tropes are. Better to laugh at them than give them any serious weight. I think
That was about that.
Yeah. Sums it up perfectly there, what you were just explaining. Okay, now I wanted to get into, I don't know if you're strapped for time, maybe.
No, I'm good.
So maybe we'll go for another 15, 20 minutes. So I just wanted to get to a few speeches that you have in the book that are very interesting, and one that I consider inspiring, but I'll keep that one for the end. The irony here on page 216. Sorry about that. Okay, so there it is. Okay. Here it is, 216. So this is basically is about the joke you were talking about before, but it's just me. It's more to touch on the intersectionality of it. A young student approached Sarah and said, "Can I share a few words with you? By the way, I'm Frank. I identify as a non-gendered lesbian. My intersectionality score is mid-range, and I'm an ally of the LGBTQI 1234 WZY. I am a proud member of the Speech Brigade. And the reason I'm talking to you today is on behalf of Fragile Minds versus Comedy." I think that is hilarious, and that portrays exactly about this. What can I call them? I'll call them participation trophy generation, which is basically Tim's generation, being cuddled all the way up, growing up, and I see that a lot. I went to a conference before the pandemic to a university at UCAM, and wow, did I see some people that reminded me of Frank right here. It's crazy. I don't know when were you in you went to university, right?
I didn't go to university. I'm taking university classes now because of the pandemic, but I didn't.
Are you taking virtual or do you have in
everything's remote right now?
Everything's remote. So you haven't had too many interactions with other students, right?
Only via my projects on Zoom and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Because when I saw that, I saw a lot of these people, and I think, is it really like? Do you find professors or any? What do you study in communication or?
It's digital marketing.
Oh, okay. Do you find that professors are kind of pushing this type of way of living, like being offended at everything or pushing these critical theories and stuff?
I think it depends on which fields. I doubt like some classic engineer teachers are really talking about social issues, but they are getting pressured to start talking about it from other people. That's what's being reported, I guess. But definitely in the social studies and in the psychology, it's starting to spread out. But that's like it depends who you follow, who you're listening to, and it seems to be the case. And there's definitely changes in how schools are approaching these matters and what they're teaching and how they're teaching it. And so I think there is, but it's like teachers. I think they feel pressured. It's either they're not going to talk about at all for or against because they're terrified. Or they're getting pressured to toe the line spew something
Well,
that
like
they might not
that
agree
story
with.
that I don't know if you heard about the University of Ottawa, where a professor, sorry, was basically she was talking about a few books. I think it was literature that she was teaching or something like that. And in one of the books that she was teaching, there's a passage where they use the N word,
Mhm.
and she unfortunately used it while she was reading the passage of the book,
Mhm.
and finds out that a student got offended, and they made this whole
Mhm.
story. It was national, provincial news, and everything, and now all these books uh, where the N word is mentioned are
Mhm.
basically not allowed in the curriculum no more. When you can't teach, like she was basically like saying how that word when it's used badly, it's bad, but in this context where he's using it, try to understand what he's trying to say, and that's why she was reading it,
Mhm.
and like is context disappearing? Like, is it even important anymore?
It depends on what your goal is. People will use context as long as it supports their argument and what the point that you're
True.
trying to get across. And if it doesn't work, and that's when they'll use like the ad hominem attacks, and they'll attack your character because the validity of their argument isn't there. They can't, let's say, debate your points, let's say, so
Hmm.
they'll just key in on that, let's say, on that point, the N word type of thing. Oh, she just said the N word. Throw
Yeah.
everything else out because maybe they won't like that teacher, and it's like we want to get rid of it.
Yes.
So it's just an ends to a means type of thing. So it's like I said,
Yeah.
there's layers. There's always layers.
Kinds of stuff that I would use in high school to get out of being in class or getting rid of a
Whatever
teacher.
it is. Yeah, like at the university level, man, if you're 20 years old, 21 years old, and you just can't read the word, if you can't hear the word, man, you're not listening to music. You're not listening to a lot of stuff. You like what?
Yeah.
Every time you watch a movie, you're gonna freak out. It's like let's say in terms of N-word, it has done incredible damage. It's an awful thing. I don't like to say it. It's
Hmm.
fine. But like when I'm reading a book, I'm not reading the book and it gets to that word and it's like N-word. It's like you're
Yeah.
thinking the word, you're saying the word in your head type of thing. It's there, but you have to understand that it's there. But it's like by you freaking out, you're giving it even more power to this to these words, these
Yes.
letters type of thing. So
Yes.
it's like
Exactly. Yes.
did
And
she
shouldn't
deserve
be.
to get fired? No,
No.
for reading out loud what someone else wrote,
Yeah.
and you have a discussion about it. Maybe you could open up a discussion in the class. If that student would have said, "Miss, I don't like the fact that you just said that word in class,"
She
and
would
the
have liked
teacher,
what she said. Was she would have liked a warning that she was about to say it.
but now this with these warnings, you have to take a prep. What you're gonna get a pillow, you're gonna curl up with it, and get ready for the bad thing to happen. It's like, come on, we like. I want
It's coming back to the cuddling. That everybody wants to be cuddled.
But there's acceptable limits of cuddling. It's a very important. Human connection is very important. It's important to teach children and to be there for your kids and to have that connection because it will translate to the future type of thing. But also at the same time, you need to have you have to grow some backbone. You have to be able to take it. Like I was bullied as a kid, and there
Yeah.
was over things I had absolutely no control over. But I'm not going to go right now on a mission to make sure that there's no jokes about cleft palates in anything. It's like if
Yeah.
someone makes a joke about a cleft palate, I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna start blogging, and it's like,
Yeah.
man, it's
And I
just
think
a joke.
especially in university, no, where it should be
I,
the hub of ideas.
but at that age, also, it's like you're
Yeah.
22 years old, and if it really hurts you that much, then you have to do some introspection because maybe there are wounds that you have to deal with, but don't attack everybody else all around you because maybe they're not even trying to target you. Like clearly, like this teacher wasn't trying to target the student.
No, of course not.
But if you have experienced the racism and all that, you have to deal with it. How can you deal with it on a personal level? And how can I make myself stronger and better to deal with it? Because I was watching The Sopranos, and Tony Soprano starts talking about people with cleft palates, and he does an impression of them, and it's like in my head, it's like fuck. But I'm not gonna get. I don't want the Sopranos guy. It's such a great show, and it's just.
Yeah.
But also, it's like he showed empathy for people with cleft palates, and he said, "I shouldn't have made fun of him. I shouldn't have done
It's
that."
true.
So
Yeah.
it's like there's the learning moment, and there's the debate, there's the talk about it. It's like that's what you need. You need to talk about it. But also, if I am still super concerned about my cleft lip. It's not the fictional character Tony Soprano that I have to go after. I have to learn how to deal with it with myself. I have to take responsibility. Yes, I might have some issues caused by other people, but I have to learn how to deal with it also. So it's like there's this balance, and like Jordan Peterson calls for like a lot of like taking responsibility type of thing. But then I also listen to like Dr. Gabor Mate, which talks about like stuff that happened to you when you're a kid and how it translates in the future and how you act. And it's like it's important to have like these interactions. So like,
Yeah.
like you need that gentle touch, you need that affection, you need that coddling when it's necessary. When someone is in pain, real pain, you gotta give them a hug. I'm not saying you just put them outside and say, no,
No,
toughen
yeah,
up.
of
There's
course.
limits. There's limits. If people are depressed, if people have mental health issues, you have to be there for them. But when it gets down to the innocuous, when it gets down to, like you said, microaggressions and little things, like the teacher saying the N-word while she's reading a text, and you freak out. It's like, no. Now this is a personal issue for you. You
Yeah,
cannot punish everyone else type
well
of thing
said.
for
Yes.
your personal issues type of thing. So
Yeah, and that it brings us back to basically what's been the center of our conversation is having conversation, being able to have a conversation. And in your book, there's statement that I think his name is Davis, a blues singer, says when he was touring, he says, "Hello, everybody. My name is Davis. I'm happy I can still kick some cans down the street and be here with you tonight. I'm 90 years old, and I have seen quite a bit throughout my life. For the new and fresh ones joining us tonight, the story is for you. When I was in my 50s, I played in a band, and one day we happened to play in the south of Alabama, and the bar was primarily white. There, my friends, I met a Ku Klux Klansman. The white gentleman had appreciated my musical talent so much that he needed to thank me. He couldn't believe a black man could play so eloquently. We began to talk, and I challenged him on his beliefs. He was hard set, you see. He told me that he had all the facts. His science, you see, gave him all the evidence he needed that blacks were inferior. I used reverse psychology and simply allowed him to get to know me, to see my humanity, and to see we had more in common than he thought. That his facts were not indeed facts, but more precisely an ideology. He was the first of hundreds I managed to help see the error of their ways. We are all capable of great things if we look past our imagined differences and realize we are all human beings, every last one of us." Wow. What more can I say about the importance of having conversations, right?
100%. But that character is based on Daryl Davis, an actual musician that actually converted Ku Klux Dragons heads of
Oh,
the
for
Ku Klux
real?
Klan. Yeah. You can find him on Joe Rogan. You can find him on. He does a great TED talk. Just Google him, Daryl Davis.
Daryl Davis?
Yeah, Daryl Davis, and it's fantastic. It's that so inspiring, and that's all him. That I can't even take credit. Like that's all him. That's inspired by him, and it's like I'm getting shivers just thinking about. And he got called a Nazi. He got called a race traitor. He got called all these things and coon
Boom.
and all this stuff. And it's like he's changing people. He's helping these people realize that they were wrong. He's helping these racists realize why they're wrong. And he actually in the TED talk he takes out the robes because they gave them those Ku Klux Klan dragons, those leaders actually gave them the robes and say, "We're not this anymore."
Oh,
And he
yeah.
has them like trophies. It's just fascinating. And I think there's also a documentary on Netflix.
Oh, definitely go check out because that's very interesting, and I like to hear things like that because that's I find it so important, and it's been in the last 3-4 months. It's been one of my things that I try to push forward is can we have a conversation? That's what I find is very important. That if we can just get back to being able to talk to each other, then I think there'll be much less conflict
But
and division.
we're too focused on the division. We're too focused on what's wrong with us on a public scale when we should be focusing on what makes us good and like what unites us and what common things are affecting us. While we're getting lost in identity politics, there's like other issues that we could really unite together with, like class issues and like economics, and that affects people across the board. And it's like we should be united on this front because this is really affects and will actually help the identity politics. But if we just focus there and argue over all of that, all the rest is just put aside, and there's no
Like
progress.
there's so many things I'm sure that most of us agree on. It's just those are not the things we choose to talk about. So many
100%.
things, whether it's big corporations, whether it's money in politics, whether it's that stuff that unites both left and right people. That people
100%.
we don't like to see money involved in politics. That's I think that's basically the strongest thing that even progressives and hard, I don't want to call them far right, but hard conservatives agree on, that we don't want to see money in politics. How big corporations, how maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 corporations control most of the things we watch on TV. These are things that we should be talking about, but we can't because we decide to bicker on the small stuff, like you were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, but now someone will tell me, but how can you say that those are major important issues? How can you try and and then the cycle just keeps going.
And then it snowballs, and then you get
and
out
it
of.
just keeps going. It just keeps going.
But I think there's still hope. Are you a pessimist or an optimist? Well, actually, you answered that question at the beginning. You said that you think it's not, cancel culture has existed forever, and that you don't see it getting close to the cliff. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm worried. I'm definitely concerned,
Okay.
and that's why I wrote something like this, and it's something
Okay.
I keep an eye on, and I every time I could talk to friends or people about it, I talk about it, and try
Okay,
and point it out.
I think that's exactly where where I'm at, and that's why I started these podcasts, is to basically, because you can post political posts on Facebook as much as you would like, but people that are not interested in politics will just scroll through and like not pay
100%.
attention. So maybe if we can get involved in the culture itself, like you writing this book, or me having conversations with you that wrote this book, maybe we can get maybe a few people to listen, and maybe they can understand what we're trying to get to. That's not political, and it shouldn't be political.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this speech by George, which is just to put in context. George is basically the MC at the underground.
He's like one of the leaders of the underground society.
Comedy section. So here he goes. George took a deep breath and began. In this world where communism and fascism hold hands while appearing to be fighting with each other, a strange world develops where speech is regulated and supposed equality of human rights exists. However, corporate and banking powers are more equal than all of us. And to top it off, we have Orwell's boot hanging over our heads. The underground is a place where opinions could differ, and we strive that our differences are settled by reason and compromise. The underground and what's left of the comedic and artistic scenes are at risk, and we need to protect them, and the freedom to laugh and cry. Those rights are dying. The mainstream is crushing them, throwing more dirt over them, hoping the old ways will be forgotten. The state is in full control, and as long as the populace obeys and squabbles over personal offenses, citizens forget to look for the shadows that lurk in the dark corners. The state is pushing its agenda step by step and year by year. Of course, this didn't happen overnight. It was done gradually and methodically. Those who held power made sure to pass that power on to those who accepted that the world they dreamt of creating would not be born and made in a simple 5, 10, or 100-year revolution. It takes more time. Asimov understood that. And look at us now, another step closer to a brave new world. They warned us, and we didn't listen. We couldn't see the subtle similarities reflecting in our faces, and if we did realize the crimes against us, it was already too late. Or we didn't have the power to stop them. Now our humanity has been stripped, and we have all marked and labeled, categorized. We are all marked and labeled, categorized like animals or warehouse inventory. We cannot forget the rules, but we know those that lead us don't follow their own rules. We know that they have their own underground, that they can hide it in plain sight. It's always the same groups of people at the top. They just appear in different shades of themselves. Can you and I go to their parties, sit in their meetings? We know their stories of sexual debauchery. We know about the predators in suits who tore the innocents away from the young. We know those stories, but we don't have that magic pass to join in on their fun. It's their club and their team, and we sit on the bench as they play. So I ask you to join us, participate at our events, spread the word, and understand that you must be careful with who you share the truth. The state's technology and reach grows every day. The next generation will be more severe and will be indoctrinated fully into the state's idea of control. They cannot understand what freedom is because they have never experienced it. This will be their new cruel norm. We are here to remember what's worth remembering. They will say we refuse to evolve, but That isn't true. We do not deny what it is to be human, and we do not stifle what makes us good. Unlike the state, who believes in order through subversion of reality, let's stand together and promise that no matter what happens, we keep our underground alive. Well, that gave me a bit of hope. Silent laughter, people. Marco Adornato. Who inspired you for that speech, or George character in general?
George is a mixture of a lot of things, but that's I think George is more of a younger Marco in college.
Ah, cool.
A
So
younger
you
Marco in college, I think so.
so
Yeah,
you were an idealist.
a little bit, yes. And I would joke about being a communist, but I'm definitely more on the left for a lot of issues. But now, as an older person, I think I'm gray. I'm very complex, and I don't like to put myself into a party. I'm a political atheist, but in terms of what he was saying, I think that's a younger, more idealistic Marco. Yes, 100%.
But I think it's important, like everything, like we've been saying in this conversation, that everything brings nuance. Everything must, nothing is so black and gray about anything. And if you would have asked me maybe 2 years ago, maybe I would have told you that I'm a conservative, but I no longer like those labels to be thrown, because on some issues I might be more left leaning. On some other issues I might be more right leaning. I'm definitely more left leaning on social issues, but on fiscal issues I'm definitely more right leaning. That's why I don't like throwing labels anymore. I just rather have conversations and see what we agree on and what we can agree to disagree on. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm a political atheist, so I'm on nobody's team, and I watch with a very cynical eye, and I don't trust politicians. I don't trust Republicans. I don't trust Democrats. I don't trust the liberals. I don't trust the conservatives. I don't trust them. They've always been in power, and we always complain. And there's plenty of evidence of so many terrible things they've done, and we're always told to vote for the lesser of evils and all this stuff. And it's just like,
It's true.
now,
It's a revolving door.
I just I can never stop. I can't look away. It's ingrained in me to follow politics, and I'll always follow it. And it's important to keep an eye on them. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely good to be aware of what's around us.
100%. And
but not
to label it, but the labeling, oh, you're a leftist, or you're alt-rightist, or you're this or that. It's just, again, you get into that cycle.
Yeah.
And you're not discussing issues, and you're not trying to fix things. You're just trying to fight over things. And like in the U.S., it boggles my mind that there's two parties for 330 million people. There's no way, and even argumentably, you could say that those two parties are one party. They're a corporate party, and
the establishment basically runs both parties.
And they don't have healthcare, and they have Lord knows how much they don't have.
Yeah, the definitely two-party system has not worked and panned out well for them so far.
No, but you can make the same argument in Canada. It's pretty much been the Liberals and Conservatives all the time too.
Yeah.
So, but we do actually have more parties, which is logical.
Yeah, maybe, and I think it's good because it creates. We have so many parties. Just we only hear about 4 or 5, but in Canada there was like 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
last time I checked. Just some are so put out on the fringes and are marginalized that we don't talk about them. But maybe we should talk about them a bit more in certain cases, because some of them might have some good ideas,
100%.
And some other ideas might not be as good. But hey, that's why we're here to talk about these ideas.
Yep.
I think the public square, which now we've been robbed from because of the pandemic, like before we could join at a bar, watch a hockey game, have a beer, talk about some issues. Now, we could say Twitter and maybe Facebook or some type of public square where we can have these discussions. But in some cases, you say something wrong and you might be banned, and then you can have these discussions. I think. Go ahead.
Let's be honest. Like online, everyone is 6'10", 300 pounds.
I guarantee.
They will say anything. But what you're saying, like in real life at a bar, human interaction, half of that stuff they wouldn't tell somebody, because A, you don't want to start a fight.
Yeah.
B, you don't know who you're talking to. So it's like it changes everything. And this pandemic has robbed us of that human connection and with different people. And it shows also online. It definitely shows online, and people lash out. It's easy. It's easy to be a fucking hero online. Sorry for
No,
swearing.
it's no problem. But you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. And since you touched about this pandemic, just maybe before we finish, um, you mentioned in the book um, about the state asking you to basically snitch on your neighbors if you
Hmm.
know of anybody that has past
Hmm.
crimes or has infringed. And what is your thing about this whole thing? The government here in Quebec asking neighbors to call the cops if they see their neighbors are having people over.
I it you support it when it's good for you, but then when someone rats on you, you're gonna be crying all the way to jail or crying about that fine. But I don't agree with it. I don't think you should be ratting on your neighbors if they're having a get together. It's their responsibility. Yes, they're part of a greater society type of thing. But
That's the problem.
but to slap a working family with if someone died in their family and they have 10 family members over at their house and they're mourning and they need to be together, that risk I think is acceptable, and they don't deserve to be fined $10,000 on top of that. They
Yeah,
already have the death of a loved one, and you know what? Getting together and mourning together. Ideally, they're being careful about maybe they're social distancing, maybe they're wearing masks. If someone has a cold or any symptoms, they're staying home and they're
yeah,
being careful about it. But if they don't have that opportunity, let's say to mourn properly, that mental health issue is going to translate. It's going to last a lot longer than the pandemic will. And when
and
you're
it's their
stressed
risk to
out,
take.
yeah, but when you're stressed out and you're anxious, your immune system suffers, which allows you to get sick. So it's like you got to really consider mental health issues and stuff like that. And
Oh yeah,
to rat on people, and also with like the curfew, and like you're finding people $5,000, all this stuff, and it's heavy. It's heavy. I don't think the government should be going to those extents. The pandemic is real. The virus is real. We need to take measures and stuff, but I always worry about when you give an inch to the government,
exactly. I was about to
usually
say.
they take the yard and they don't want to give it back.
Yeah,
It's just like
usually
9/11 and when they
yes,
signed in the
the Patriot
Patriot
Act.
Act and
Yeah,
all that stuff, and like they didn't take it back,
no.
and so it's like
Usually, when the government takes something away from you temporarily, it usually ends up being
so
permanent.
we just have to be really really vigilant, and that's why like I play along, like I wear the mask, I do all that,
Yeah.
but if it becomes like things start become like hardwired, like after the pandemic, you have to do this and that, and then it's gonna be like now you're
Well,
overreaching.
we're already seeing pushing for. Just read an article in Bloomberg Health where they're asking basically for a pandemic style lockdown every 2 years to combat global
Global warming.
emissions. So I think these governments are starting to get these ideas, and I don't know. I still have hope. I'll be an optimist on that aspect of lockdowns. I hope we'll get back to a normal life soon because we need social interaction. Humans need social interaction.
There's no doubt. That's why I worry about kids, and especially the high schoolers and kids in elementary. It's a very crucial time in their lives to learn how to socially interact with people, and wearing masks and not being in class every day. It's going to have an effect. It's definitely going to have an effect, and not being able to hang out with your friends after school, and
Yeah.
it's going to have a major effect.
Or playing sports now.
Uh,
They announced some loosening up of the sports,
yeah.
organized sports. At least that, because I think the kids do need to play their sports and see their
I
friends.
don't think it's just kids. I think
Well, everybody, yeah.
it's
I haven't played
it's
ball hockey in a year and a half, and
it's in our nature.
yeah.
We're not sedentary beings. We're
No.
supposed to be moving.
There's a reason that in jail, when you do something wrong, they put you in solitary confinement. Is just basically
Well,
because humans are not made to be in solitary
yeah,
confinement.
it's torture.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the UN classifies it as torture.
It is.
So there
It
you
is.
go.
I like Chelsea Manning. Like she tried to commit suicide when she was in jail,
Yes.
and as punishment, they put her in solitary confinement,
Wow.
which is insanity.
Yeah.
If someone is in that mental state, you do not want to isolate them in a
Further, yeah.
with no light and 23 hours a day. No, it's just
Uh, it's crazy. That Peel that in Ontario where they were asking. Well, they basically backtracked on that a bit, but they were basically asking if your kid was in contact with somebody in class that had tested positive, or that was himself in contact with somebody that was positive, for you to put him in solitary quarantine in his room for 14 days and just go bring him food. And I actually saw parents on Twitter saying, "Oh, today is the first day of my kid's 14-day quarantine in his room." He's sending me personal messages on Facebook saying he's lonely. And she's actually describing that story of her kid on Twitter.
That's they're taking it too far.
Like self-conscious. Hello.
They're taking it too far. They're taking it too far.
And I think these some people that are just glued to their TVs and that are getting fed this fear every day. And I think it's actually having an effect on them mentally.
Absolutely. But fear has always been the major selling point on any news, and it is what gets clicked. And even CNN said, "Thank you. We're talking so much about COVID-19 because it's helping our ratings. Because after their media darling Trump left, their ratings dropped." And
well, look, and this week all kinds of people are being laid off in media organizations because they lost their boogeyman to talk about. So the ratings are going down, subscriptions are going down.
I think I covered that also in the book. It's like after Trump, the comedians didn't have much to talk about. Like there are some comedians out there now. It's like they're still like clinging to Trump whenever he says something, or that's like.
Well, no, it's Trumpism because he's not there no more.
Show me more of your material. It can't all be just about Trump. It's
so many things to talk about. Like,
Trump is hilarious. You can make fun of him. Like he's a living, walking dream for comedians. There's so much, but it's like show some range. Like I don't know. Like there's a lot more to. But the media acts like they hated Trump, but they loved him. They made so much money because of him. It's the hate. It's just what we're gonna project. But like the tax cut that he made for the company, they're all happy about.
They're all happy because basically they're the ones who, from that day him going down the escalator, they're the ones who propped him up.
Yeah.
And then because they thought it was going to be good for ratings, but they also thought, which was in my opinion, I don't know if that's the case, but they also thought he was never going to be able to win. And then when he actually won, then they're like, "Oh, okay, this is serious." And
I thought Hillary was going to win. I thought it was like some scheme, just like we're going to put some asshole against Hillary to guarantee that she wins. I was very wrong about that. But it's not like
you're not the only one, Marco. That's for sure.
And I'm not saying that life would have been great under Hillary either, type of thing. So
no, like you said before, every side has their bad issues and their bad policies that some people put forth.
I love that picture of Bill and Hillary at Donald's wedding, and they're all happy together. Yes. And those are the parties we're not invited to.
Exactly.
That's the world that we're not privy to. And then when they go out in the public, they put up their you're this, you're that. But then when they're greasing each other's wheels, they were best friends. So.
Yeah, it's like I saw this once on it was like a congressional hearing or something where they're basically arguing with each other, insulting each other in Congress. Then there's a vote, and then CNN cuts away, but they forget that C-SPAN is running 24/7, and then CNN cuts away, and then they all come and they're fist pumping each other and handshaking each other. Where you were just calling the other guy a racist, not to.
It's like Kamala Harris in one of the debates. She called Joe Biden a racist. You're racist, and then they asked her about it. She said, but it's just a debate. It was a debate. It's like, okay, so you were lying about calling her racist just for the sake of argument, or was there actually something valid? Maybe about maybe the crime bill that Joe Biden helped create in the 90s might have been a little bit racist, maybe. But no, that was just a debate. It's just
it's only politics, guys. It's nothing. But I like Tulsi Gabbard when she let Kamala Harris.
She wrecked her.
Yeah, she did wreck her. And I think that's why they chose Joe Biden to go forward, because they thought it would be too politically dangerous to have Kamala Harris, because they thought maybe Kamala would lose after that brutal takedown by Tulsi.
It was factual. Yeah, it was factual. Definitely, it wasn't just like. But Joe Biden is another puppet. He's been in the game for 40, 50 years,
and he's going to change stuff now.
And he's just exactly. So he's just another puppet. He reminds me of Reagan. Even Reagan, during his last
at the end, yes, exactly.
Towards the end, he wasn't very cognitively active.
His,
And
his Alzheimer was already kicking in pretty strongly at the end of those
so
last few
whatever,
years.
call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever.
No, no, it's true.
The president is just a front, and you always have to
Yeah.
look at his cabinet and who's running things in his cabinet and stuff. And
Yeah, we don't want to say the DS word. I don't know if you know the deep state.
the deep state, but
That's what people will call us conspiracy theorists if we mention it. But maybe it's not a deep state, but there's definitely people around him that have power over him. Let's just say it like that.
Just take Obama with he had on in his cabinet. He had so many people that were in Goldman Sachs. They were all like banking, all banking, whatever, former banking employees, whatever you want to call them. And then who got who got the bailouts out of the banks? You know, so it's like that's where the power lies, and that's who usually is who's in the cabinet, and they're going to push their agenda. And but now they're integrating identity politics. It's like the military. He was the former head of Raytheon, and now he's the
Secretary of Defense, no?
Secretary of Defense. So it's like there's no conflict of interest. Jeez. So like he'll be there for 4 years. Okay, I'm fucking off now, and then all those contracts that come raining in. You know, it's like this has been the cycle. It's like you have the special interest groups embedded within, but the emphasis wasn't on him being a Raytheon; it was on him being black. It was the first.
It's true,
and also I think
the press secretary said something in those words where they said where somebody questioned her, a journalist questioned her on some issue or policy about transportation, and she said, "You don't have to worry about that because we have a woman now taking." Oh no, it was about Yellen, the girl that she used to be.
Janet Yellen.
Yes.
She has no conflict of interest.
Yes,
working
exactly.
for the private Federal Reserve, which isn't a public company.
Yes, which is the chairman or the president, whatever you want to call it, is named by the president, but it's a private bank.
Exactly.
It's all over the place.
Exactly.
Marco, this was really an interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. So let's finish with my rapid questions I like to ask all my guests, okay?
All right.
So what have you read or who have you read or listened to in the last few years that's inspired you or that you would like to recommend to other people to read?
Definitely John Fante and Charles Bukowski. Anything from them in terms of fiction. And in terms of nonfiction and maybe self-help, Dr. Gabor Mate, he has various topics dealing with ADHD, stress and anxiety, and how it might lead to cancer. And he actually has like scientific stuff. He actually even got like the Order of Canada. Very fascinating. Sorry?
He's a psychologist?
He's a general practitioner, I think. But he focuses on a lot of things. Very fascinating. And also on addiction. So I definitely recommend Dr. Gabor Mate on that.
Gabor Mate?
Gabor Mate.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, for fiction, in terms of music, my God. Well, I was really happy that Tool came out with a new album, which was fantastic.
That's reminiscing.
It was last year, and Tool was. I would always recommend Tool, but I'm more of an old school guy, and someone I've been listening to is an Italian artist called Rino Gaetano, who talks a lot about social issues too. So, like, if you're Italian or if you're just curious, definitely check him out too, I guess.
What about a comedian?
Andrew Schultz is one of my favorite.
Andrew Schultz?
Andrew Schultz is one of my favorite up-and-coming comics. But then there's like Joey Diaz. That's always
I love Joey Diaz.
Good for a good laugh. And
I always try to find the podcasts on Joe Rogan with Joey Diaz because they're always hilarious.
Yeah, he's a unique, great storyteller. Is definitely funny. But I think like in terms of up-and-comers, Andrew Schultz. But then, hey man, just always search Ronnie Dangerfield, Don Rickles, Eddie Murphy. You can't go wrong with.
I like Ralphie May. Too bad he passed away.
Oh man, Ralphie May was one of the best live acts I saw. I saw him at the Nasty Show.
Oh, you saw him live?
Yeah, he had the whole crowd singing with him. He was singing like a version of a Bon Jovi song. Everyone was crying, laughing. He was amazing.
Oh wow, I love Ralphie May. That's definitely who I recommend. Yeah.
It's fantastic. I could go on and on.
Just give me two people who have been the most influential in your life in general, in personal life, in career, in writing, and everything.
Oh boy, that's extremely that's a hard one. Oh man, I think this is the first time I feel like I have nothing to say. I'm stunned. The two most
You could just give
inspirational,
one if you want to. You could only give one if you want to.
an inspirational person. Oh man, in terms for like creativity, I'd say Frank Zappa is
Hmm.
definitely someone that he's definitely super political, very intelligent. When it came to music, all over the
Genius.
place, and it was
Mm.
definitely someone I look up to. And there's no such thing as boundaries, and it's just about exploring art and exploring yourself. And
He was very
uh,
philosophical in his approach of politics and stuff like that.
he's very involved in
Yeah,
politics in terms of, like, also with censorship and things like that, but also about like freedom to be an artist and express yourself in the way you deem fit, and not have like a corporate influence telling you what notes you should sing and stuff like
yeah.
that. But
Or
trying
the
to,
lyrics you should write. Yeah.
well, but definitely George Orwell. George
Yeah.
Orwell has definitely, and I would tell people not to just read Animal Farm in 1984. He has lots of other great books and great essays that will help open your eyes and mind to a lot of different topics. And
Oh, yeah, I've heard that's not the first time I hear that for people that enjoyed that type of work, that you should definitely look into George's other work,
yeah,
because he was very, actually, some go even more. Well, I haven't read them, but from what people told me about them, is that his other work um, goes even deeper into these things and
mhm,
to his way of thinking about
mhm.
these subjects.
He has great essays. I definitely would recommend that.
Okay, so my final question would be: where do you see yourself as a writer in 10 years? Or where would you like to see yourself as a writer in 10 years?
As a writer, I just hope I could keep writing as much as I am. If I could make somewhat of a living off of writing, it would be fantastic. But I'm not as idealistic as I once used to be. I know it's extremely difficult for
Yeah,
writers to make a living, but if I could entertain my closest friends and at the very least entertain myself, I'll definitely be happy in 10 years from now if I'm still as free spirited and not concerned about what I write and just free flowing. And I think that's I just don't want
I'm
to
sure.
stop.
Once you start writing, like you say, and you get inside that zone,
It's
you just
full steam
you
ahead.
just write. Do you
Yeah.
close yourself off? How do you? What's your writing process?
For Silent Laughter, I was writing once a week, which is very not. I probably could have written a lot faster, but that's the way it flows. So for me, it really depends. It's either it hits me like a sledgehammer to the head and I dive in, or it's a brutal struggle to figure out what to write. And
Hmm.
so it's depends what I'm writing also. So it's like depends on my mood. If I'm writing fiction, it has
Do you
the
always have a notebook with you in case sometimes
I have
you?
pieces of paper and pens are all everywhere in my house, and I make sure I write notes on my phone. But to write like a fictional story, it's like a chemistry experiment. Like all the chemicals have to be measured right, and I'll be able to dive in. But if I have to write poetry or a short essay or a short story, that's strictly based on my emotional state
Okay.
and
At
what's
that
going
moment.
on.
Mm.
Or if something like I see something and it's like the firework will explode, and like I write it down, and then
You got to do it. Yeah.
I gotta do it type of thing.
Okay, so where can people follow you online and social media, and where can they find your book if they want to buy it?
Well, you could always find me on Facebook. My name is Marco AD on Facebook, or you could follow my page on Facebook, which is titled Silent Laughter. And if you want to buy my book, you could find it on Amazon.com.ca.eu, wherever you are. Just make sure that when you do the search, put Silent Laughter by Marco Adornato, you'll have a higher shot of finding the book.
I'll have a description of the Amazon link in the video. And before I want to end, would you, since you talked about that you studied a bit in screenwriting and screenplays and stuff like that, were you thinking about turning this book into a screenplay after
It,
having written it?
it could definitely be, it could definitely turn into a movie, a
Because
series.
I definitely see this book as a movie.
it could definitely be done, even like a Netflix show type of thing, because then you could expand on characters. But that's with almost any fiction, you could turn it into something. But it's definitely very contemporary to what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So
Yes, exactly. That's why. And right now, like the Daily Wire, where Gina Carano signed a new deal now since she got fired from Disney. Well, they're basically going into the entertainment business, but from the other side. They did a movie not too long ago that I enjoyed actually. It's called Hide Run or something like that. I forgot the title now. And it's not political at all, but it's just the fact that people don't want to get involved and be everything they're watching be political. That's why I didn't like Coming to America too. I guess they were too scared of maybe offending someone. Where it's Eddie Murphy, come on. So what they want to do, Daily Wire, is get into more of just like not being scared of this and just going into the culture, entertainment, and publishing these movies and these shows. So maybe it would be something for them to look at. If they're listening, guys, Silent Laughter is
I might get into lots of arguments with Ben Shapiro, I think.
Oh yeah, but I'm sure he would love to discuss it with you though. All right, Marco, thanks a lot for coming on. It was really
a pleasure. Thanks,
it was a pleasure and an honor to have you on, and congratulations on your book. It was amazing, and I wish you all the success in the world, Marco.
Thanks to you too, man. Thanks for everything.
All right, thanks. See you soon, guys.
Bye, everybody.